And good evening. Welcome to the People's Food Co-op Linkage Committee virtual conversation tonight with the Hands-On Museum represented by Sarah Britnall. Is that right? Okay. And the Leslie Science Center represented by Susan Westhoff. Welcome. And we look forward to hearing about the organizations that you represent. It is one organization, right?
That's
Uh,
right.
so, so take it away.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully this will work well for all of us.
Excellent.
Does that work?
Yep.
All right, look at that technology.
All right.
Love it. Well, thanks for having us. I wanted to just, I know we were chatting earlier, but just reiterate my absolute love for People's Food Co-op. I know all of us at the Hands-On Museum, I was just saying, frequent your space. Even now, whenever we're able to, it's wonderful to be neighbors, and we really appreciate that you choose to do this to support the community, and we're honored to be a part of it right now. So thank you for inviting us here and supporting us. Um, I'll talk a little bit about the two organizations separately and then how we came to come together. So the Ann Arbor Hands-On Museum, I think all of you know, have been around quite some time. We really are focused on the idea of being, being hands-on, invoking curiosity, trying to help families think, and kids especially think that maybe they can do something they never realized they can do. Maybe they can be an engineer, maybe they can be an artist. All of our exhibits are designed around the idea of believing that you can. The Hands-On Museum started a small space in the old firehouse and expanded about 15 years ago. We're now 40,000 square feet and have over 250 exhibits. It's really quite incredible how they have creatively used the space, and we have worked to use every nook and cranny to make it exciting and engaging space. With only 40,000 square feet, we still welcome over 300,000 visitors a year. This is non-COVID times. I'll just preface, most of my figures are in a non-COVID year. Um, People will come to us as individual families, as school field trips and outreach programs. We'll have community events in the space and even have corporate rentals from time to time. And our visitors come from all over, Northern Ohio, across Southeast Michigan. We even get a lot of out-of-state visitors. I know you're mentioning, Ray, when folks come in to visit family or even a university student, will often come and see them say hi. The Leslie Science Nature Center is almost been around almost as long as Hands-On. Hands-On's been around a little bit longer. We're really here because of Dr. Eugene, Emily, and Emily Leslie. They lived on the property and never had children of their own, but always welcomed the kids in the neighborhood to the property. And as they were getting older, they decided that they wanted to deed the homestead portion of their property to be around for children for all time, to be a space for them to explore and get to know nature and feel comfortable with nature. And the city really took that to heart. The city inherited the property in the mid 70s when the Leslies passed away. And they had a friends committee and spent a lot of time thinking creatively about what to do with the land and started the Leslie Science Center in 1986. It started off with summer camps and preschool programs all around environmental education. That wasn't necessarily what it was called at the time, but nature exploration. And it evolved in 2007 to become its own separate nonprofit. So the Leslie Science Nature Center was part of the city for quite some time, and it is still a city-owned property and city-owned buildings, but the nonprofit functions out of that space and runs all of the programming. So then in 2016, the Hands-On Museum and Leslie began talking in a more formal way. We had been collaborating since about 2008. We did a lot of collaborative programs at the museum, at Leslie. Hands-On was always part of Earth Day for quite some time out at the Leslie Science and Nature Center. And in 2016, we started talking about um, where both organizations were looking to grow. You know, Leslie, just being a relatively new nonprofit, we were putting all of our money into our program staff, and we couldn't afford all of the back end. We couldn't afford to hire marketing and development and HR and finance and all of those things you really need to grow as a nonprofit and be strong. And Hands-On Museum, I mentioned earlier, it feels like a nice, wonderful, spacious space, but it's really quite small as a museum. Relatively speaking, they couldn't grow any bigger. They didn't have anywhere to put more exhibits or do more programs, but they had a demand from the community to do more. and demand from their visitors to do nature-based programming. So Mel Drum, who's our CEO, and I actually met for several years, and we started bringing board members together. We formalized a committee, and we are now a united organization. So we're one nonprofit, and we cover the full range of STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So think of the formal sciences, the hard sciences, if you will. I don't love that phrase, but chemistry and physics, engineering, and then you have the natural sciences, the environmental education, and it all comes together with a united program team. We now have a united development and marketing team. Everyone works for the united organization, and just happen to have two sites that we function out of. It has been more synergistic than I think any of us expected, especially in COVID times. Um, with COVID, the museum, and we'll talk about COVID more in a minute, but with COVID, the museum had to shut their doors for quite some time, but Leslie didn't necessarily have to, being an outdoor space. So even right now, we have outdoor programming happening at the Leslie Science and Nature Center, but it's not just environmental education. We have STEM-related programming happening outside, which is a wonderful thing for us to be able to continue to do. Very grateful for that. The community is integral to our work. We're here because the community wants us to be here, and we serve a role for the community throughout actually many different ways. So before COVID, we had over 80,000 different individuals that we would reach in outreach programs, schools, libraries, community centers. Our distance learning programs, so virtual programming, actually has been around for over 10 years, and we reached over 7,000 students in Canada and Mexico and 44 states, which is pretty incredible. So before COVID ever happened, we had quite a comfort with virtual programming, which we're very grateful for. And over the last few years, we've really focused on scholarship programming. Our area schools don't have the funds to really afford field trips the way that they used to 10 years ago. So in fiscal year 2019, we actually offered scholarships for 227 school visits, which meant over 15,000 students were able to attend our programs at a significantly discounted rate. And recently, this started also, I believe in 2019, we started offering an EBT and WIC card admission rate. So the museum has a set individual admission rate, and we started offering a discount of $3 admission, which we're really, really grateful to be able to offer and continue offering as we reopen right now. So speaking of COVID, I know not everybody wants to hear that word anymore, but March 13th of 2020, just like for many of us, we actually did close our doors. Spring and summer is a really big time for us. I don't know if you can picture it, but spring is when most schools have field trips. Most schools are looking to get out and explore, and we typically have 2 to 5 schools a day in the doors in springtime. And at the Leslie Science and Nature Center and at other locations, we have had a very robust summer camp program that typically invites about 1,000 campers into our spaces. So to lose all of that in an instant was devastating. But while we were losing $400,000 to $600,000 a month in spring and summer, our team acknowledged that there were ways we could be there for the community, and that was really important that we switched our gears and figured out what we could do. So we have some 3D printers. We were able to make face masks in coordination with the U of M hospital. We were able to offer free weekly virtual programs for our community. That was March through August. Every single week we had a free program. We saw incredible support, over 100 people attending these programs as families had to pivot and figure out, what do we do with our kids? They're suddenly home, they're bored, they want to learn about slime, they want to learn about animals, they want to learn about habitats, they want to learn all about states of matter and fractions, and we have all these great programs we were able to give them. We took our camp program and suddenly offered a virtual camp experience, and our team, truly grateful to them that they figured out how to create a virtual camp experience that really got kids outside still. So while kids were learning through the virtual platform, they learned experiments and activities to then take outside and do. And we had hands-on kits the families would pick up, and then they would take it home and they would have their magnifying glass and their nature journal, and they would have all these different things to do the activities so that it wasn't just sitting and staring at a screen. Really felt like it was true to who we were still. Even now, we have virtual programs that happen almost every single day. We have family experiences. That's Andrea, one of our staff here, is outside giving a STEM kit to a family. They have magnifying glasses and compasses and all sorts of things in a kit that they take out on the trails, and they go exploring. And that happens twice a week. And then we also have raptor tours where families can rent a program and have a private experience on site where they meet some of our birds of prey and meet with one of our wildlife staff, hear about what our birds eat, what it means to take care of them, why we have them, these injured, rehabilitated animals, and how they can become educators. And then we also just recently started opening up the museum for private pod reservations. So families can come out to the hands-on museum. They can have a safe, contained experience where they have the whole museum for 2 hours, which has been incredibly popular. And we're opening back up to our members at the end of this month, which we're really excited about. We have really deferred to the science of COVID and stayed closed throughout as we felt like we needed to stay safe and keep our community safe. Oh, there we go. We had a picture for the pods. I forgot. So then we've had some really exciting changes as well. With the museum closed for almost a year, we had an opportunity to really invest in the space. We have a gorgeous sculpture that was came out of, oh, I forget the art show. Sarah, do you remember the name of it on the west side of the state?
Art Prize.
Thank you.
Art,
Um,
yeah.
it was at Art Prize a couple of years ago. A beautiful metal tree that kids can see when they walk into the space. It has lights you can't quite tell, lights that change colors throughout. There's a whole new exhibit on the first floor of the firehouse called All About You. So it's all about how our bodies work, how we move. This is a child interacting with one of the parts of the exhibit where you can see the major organs, and then you can switch the screen and see the nervous system. You can switch the screen and see a skeleton. Over here, you can't quite see as the ambulance that everyone knows and loves, but the whole floor has been transformed, and it's a sort of work that we could never do when the museum's open. You can't tear up carpet and change HVAC systems and pull all the exhibits out and put them all back in when the museum's open. So we took the moment as an opportunity, and thankfully had funders who are willing to invest in the space with new exhibits. And then over at Leslie, I realized this is a very pulled out drawing, but we have a nature playscape that we're putting in that we're incredibly excited about. You may have heard a couple of years ago, we were starting a nature playscape project over there, and then Leslie actually had a shutdown for 2 years for environmental concerns. I'm thrilled to share that we are back on site. The state has actually signed off that our site is okay to be back on and be functioning out of the space. The environmental concerns are almost completely remediated and mitigated. And we have shifted the location of the playscape, but we're back into building and construction. So this past fall, we actually installed a trail, and I don't know if it's clear enough, but these are our raptors. If you've been there before, our birds. And there's a new fully accessible trail, it's 6 feet wide, less than 5% grade, and it goes through the woods. And it is our very first trail that is considered accessible on our site. So we are very, very excited about that. And currently just starting to invest in and fundraise for the rest of the playscape. There will be a water feature where kids can redirect water and play with water outside. There will be a loose parts area where they can build with natural materials like rocks and logs. We already have kids who do this sort of naturally on their own. They build forts and all sorts of fun structures outside. There will be a teaching amphitheater space where we can do outdoor programming, which I think even in non-COVID times will be a welcome alternative. And then there'll be some more non-traditional play structures, might be the best way to put it. A climbing space that we're looking to get kids up into the tree canopy where they can experience what it's like to be up there. And then there is a slide, but rather than just having a slide in a tunnel like any playground, it's an underground slide and a tunnel that takes you underground, like you're one of the animals who live underground. So it should be a lot of fun. And that'll be starting again this spring and then probably over the next 2 years built out. And in the end, the truth is we are truly here because of the community. We have been incredibly humbled, I would say, by the support from the community through COVID. We know that there's a lot of needs, especially in the social services right now, and have partnered with many partners to try and support them throughout the last year, and of course throughout the 35 years we've been around. But we continue to get support from the community as well, and from places like People's Food Co-op, and we truly appreciate that. We couldn't do it without you. Um, so with that, I realized it was quick, but I was told 15 minutes, so I stayed focused. I would love to take any questions that you have, or anything else you'd like to know about what we're doing.
Ah, well, that was an excellent rundown, an amazing broad presentation of all of you, what you do. Any questions, Mary, Amanda?
I appreciated hearing all about the details and how you've survived. I think that, and the outreach sounds like it's really incredible for students across our communities to be able to engage with the work of the Science Center and the Hands-On Museum while they're not in school. I bet that's been a real positive for so many kids. And I was also really interested to hear about your outreach for families that may not have the funds to visit places like this. So having the reduced entrance fee so that it's more accessible to people across the whole socioeconomic spectrum. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. We really believe in our mission that we want everyone to have an opportunity to experience the natural world, the sciences, and feel like they can come into our spaces and be welcomed. And even our programming, I mentioned the Raptor tours that we're doing, and we can have up to 12 people together, and it's only $30 for that experience, which is really, hopefully, it's intended to be at least a really low cost if you have 12 people coming, trying to make everything that we do affordable as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Do you have major, are there major foundations that are big donors to your organizations?
There are some. We keep working on those relationships and building those relationships. We have family foundations who are very generous and give annual support. We do have some corporate sponsors and foundations that work with us on some capital work and on some program support, which we're very grateful for. And we're always looking for new partnerships.
That's great, because I would imagine all you do is just keeping these facilities and going has got to be extremely expensive.
It surprised even me because, we've always been open 7 days a week at the museum. It never occurred to me how much it would cost to be closed. And with COVID, it was quite the realization that utilities and insurance alone were costly.
Yeah.
Not something I didn't know, but I'd never really thought to figure out how much that would be. Yeah, it pays a lot to stay closed. I'm sure it is for you too, with refrigeration and just you have base things that have to happen in order to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the store has fortunately stayed open, but it's been a trial, and the staff has been heroes to be able to stock and welcome people in and not feel threatened by I'm sure they do feel threatened actually, but they come to work anyways, and that's they're heroic that way.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Amanda.
Oh.
And creative, as Amanda will, she can speak for this herself, but to find sources of food where suppliers might not be able to supply. I mean, Amanda, you've shared a lot of that with us.
Oh yeah, definitely. We relied heavily on the community over the local growing season, especially when this all first started. Supply chain went down, and luckily we had just come into the growing season, and we really owe the community farms and everybody else, a lot of credit for feeding all of us.
Absolutely. And it was quite shocking for all of us, wasn't it, to have sort of the reality check of food travels here. A lot of food travels here, and when it can't, what do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are lucky. There's a lot of amazing farms nearby.
I did have a question about, you know, the scholarships and stuff like that you guys offer. Is that information just available on your website, or like
I
how
I
do you
believe
find
so.
out that? Okay.
It's a great question. So it normally is on our website. I believe it still is. And I only say it that way because we have modified the website in COVID times. I don't recall exactly what we've taken down, but emailing our info email address and saying that you're interested in scholarships would be a way to find out. Scholarship application is
Mhm.
extremely easy. So camp scholarships I know are live right now. There's no form, there's no proof of any personal income that's needed. We take people on faith that when they say they need the support, they need the support. And the camp scholarships are still available for all of our virtual camps. Our in-person camps is sold out. Then school scholarships, we base it on the free and reduced lunch percentages, which are publicly available. So we can see if a school applying has a 50% reduced lunch in their school or more, then we give them a pretty substantial scholarship.
Mhm, mhm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm grateful we can do that.
Uh,
And that is with some of those foundation and corporate supporters that I mentioned earlier. They help underwrite that cost. And truly the schools,
mhm.
I'm sure it's not a surprise to any of you, the schools just don't have the money for these trips anymore. The busing alone is incredibly costly.
Yeah. So, Susan, how long have you been with the organization? I'm curious. I mean, you have a lot of knowledge that you've given us. It sounds like you have an extensive and long background.
I'm glad it sounds that way. Um, I've been with Leslie for 9.5 years. Can't believe it's almost a decade. It's kind of amazing. So most of the time that it's been a nonprofit, a big chunk of it. And then I was with Mel Drum, our CEO. The two of us were the first people talking about the merger. So I'm intimately familiar with the merger process back in 2016 and worked through that process. And obviously, once we merged, was part of the museum. So that's been the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm now the chief operating officer across the organization. So I function across both spaces, just like Sarah. Sarah works in development. Really, Sarah wears about 20 hats, I would say. But she's in development with me, and we work across the organization at both sites. So it's a welcome challenge to have two sets of facilities, but we really see ourselves as a united group. And we're, like I said earlier with the COVID piece, it's just lovely to have this gorgeous, amazing indoor space at the museum. And then, of course, Leslie has this beautiful outdoor space and then the smaller, intimate homes because it's the old homestead. So just such different facilities that we can utilize for different types of programs.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, amazing. Um, Well, any other questions tonight? This has been really fun to hear about your work. Anybody else?
Just thank you. I didn't even realize they were combined together. I knew about both of them, but I didn't know they were together. So I learned some things, and I think this is just such important information for us to pass on, to others. And I appreciate Amanda's question too about the scholarships. So if we hear of people who need them, I think we can all share that information with others. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity and the support.
Well, good neighbors. Thank you.
So
Absolutely.
are you guys is the Hands-On Museum currently open, or?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
we have pre-reserved pod times that are through next week that are sold out. And then actually tomorrow at 10 a.m., exactly at 10 a.m., we have more pod times that will be opening up for the end of March, and then some 2 member days. So the 2 Saturdays at the end of March will be for members only. So hands-on members. And then our hope is to continue to scale up our opening. It's all dependent on COVID numbers. We're looking at the 7-day rolling average constantly. But if things continue to plateau or go down, we anticipate being able to open up more and have public days soon. So fingers crossed. I hope my
Yeah.
answer is just yes and yes.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to that happening, and I look forward to those buses coming down. It's Catherine, right? No, Anne.
And me too.
And
Me too. I hope that happens in the fall.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, and have a good evening, everybody. Stay healthy, and we'll see you around the neighborhood.
Sounds good.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.